You are now listening to Mark the Medium on Mark's Unexplained World on Hinckley Community Radio, a non-profit podcast radio station. This episode is about the Japanese Airlines Flight 1628 UFO incident.
Japan Airlines Cargo Flight 1628 was a UFO incident that occurred on the 17th day of November in 1986, a mere 37 years ago, that involved a Japanese Boeing 747-200F cargo aircraft. The aircraft was en route from Paris travelling to Narita International Airport near Tokyo. At 1711 over eastern Alaska, on the Reykjavík to Anchorage section of the flight, the crew witnessed two unidentified objects to their left. These objects subsequently rose from below and gradually closed in towards the aircraft. When at their closest, the aircraft's cabin was lit up, and the captain could feel the heat emanating from the lights on his face. The two original UFOs departed before a third, much larger disc-shaped object started to follow them. Anchorage Air Traffic Control requested the oncoming United Airlines flight to confirm the unidentified flying objects, but when they sighted Japan Airlines 1628 at 1751, no other aircraft of any shape or size could be distinguished. This sighting lasted for 50 minutes and ended up somewhere in the vicinity of Denali. Greetings, Unexplainers. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the weird and the wonderful world of Mark's Unexplained World. My name is Mark Hughes. I'm a podcaster, a psychic medium, and a bookaholic. I would also like to welcome any new listeners to my show, Mark the Medium, Mark's Unexplained World, on a new platform for this, my 48th show. You can now also find my shows on Ghost Planet Network on Roku TV. I focus on anything strange, unexplained events, paranormal encounters, and quite frankly, anything else that grabs my attention that is not an everyday occurrence. Today, I'm going to tell you the mysterious story about the Japan Airlines Flight 1628 UFO incident. And this week's necessary disclaimer. You listen at your own discretion, with all opinions and comments being strictly my own, but the facts always remaining true. I also apologise if I pronounce anything incorrectly. My English, although it is my first and only language, well, the older you get, the less you tend to worry about getting your words wrong. So, back to the event we go. On the 17th of November 1986, the Japanese crew of a Japan Airlines Boeing 747 cargo freighter witnessed three unidentified flying objects after sunset while flying over eastern Alaska. At least the first two objects were observed by all three crew members, including Captain Kenju Tarochi, who was an ex-fighter pilot with more than 10,000 hours flight experience. Joining him on this flight were his co-pilot, Takanori Tamifuji, in the right-hand seat, and flight engineer Yoshio Tsukuda. The routine cargo flight entered the Alaskan airspace on autopilot, cruising at 565 miles per hour at an altitude of 35,000 feet. At 17:09, the Anchorage Air Traffic Control advised that they would follow a new heading towards the small village of Talkeetna in Alaska. My apologies to all those who live out there. As soon as Japan Airlines 1628 straightened out from its turn at precisely 17:11, Captain Tarachi noticed two other aircraft to his far left and some 2,000 feet below his altitude. So he assumed that they were some kind of military aircraft. These objects were tracking both his flight path and airspeed. At 17:18, the two aircraft suddenly and abruptly veered to a new position that was about 500 feet or 1,000 feet in front of his aircraft. So he assumed they were adopting a stacking configuration. In doing so, they also activated a kind of reversed thrust, with their lights becoming dazzlingly bright. To match the speed of the aircraft and their sideways approach, the objects displayed what Captain Tarachi could only describe as a disregard for inertia. And he also said, and I quote, "The thing was flying as if there was no such thing as gravity. It sped up, then stopped, then flew matching our speed, in the same direction as us, so much so that to us it appeared to be standing still. The next instant, it changed course. In other words, the flying object had overcome gravity." The reverse thrust caused a bright flare for 3 to 7 seconds, to the extent that Tarachi could feel the warmth from their glow. At 17:19, the pilots notified air traffic control, who were unable to confirm any other air traffic in the indicated position. After 3 to 5 minutes, the objects changed position and assumed a side-to-side configuration, which they then maintained for another 10 minutes. They continued to accompany the aircraft, assuming an undulating motion and some back and forth rotation of the jet nozzles, which seemed to be under automatic control, causing them to flare with brighter or duller luminosity at the same time. Each of the objects had a square shape to it that consisted of two rectangular arrays of what appeared to be glowing nozzles or thrusters, separated by a much darker central section. Captain Tarachi speculated in his own drawings that the objects would appear cylindrical if they were viewed from another angle, and that the observed movement of the nozzles could be ascribed to the cylinder's rotation. The objects left abruptly at around 17:23, moving to a point below the horizon to the east. At the position where the first objects disappeared, Captain Tarachi then noticed a very pale band of light that mirrored their altitude, speed and direction. Setting their on-board radar scope to 25 nautical miles or 46 kilometres range, he confirmed that an object was in the expected 10 o'clock direction at about 7.5 nautical miles or 13.9 kilometres distance, and then proceeded to inform air traffic control of its presence. Anchorage ATC found absolutely nothing on the radar screens, but Elmendorf Air Force Base, NORAD's Regional Operations Control Center, or ROCC for short, found directly in his flight path after some minutes a surge primary return, which is a form of a pressure surge. And on a side note, NORAD is an abbreviation for North American Aerospace Defense Command. As the city lights of Fairbanks began to illuminate the object, Captain Tarachi believed to perceive the outline of a gigantic spaceship on his port side that was, and I quote, twice the size of an aircraft carrier. It was, however, outside First Officer Tamifuji's field of view. The object appeared to follow in formation, or in the same relative position throughout the 45-degree turn, with a descent from 35,000 to 31,000 feet at 10,700 to 9,400 metres, and a 360-degree turn. Once again, the short-range radar at Fairbanks Airport failed, however, to register the object. Anchorage Air Traffic Control offered the pilot some sort of military intervention, but this was declined by the pilot due to his knowledge of the Mantell incident. And on an interesting side note, the Mantell incident occurred on the 7th of January 1948, when 25-year-old Captain Thomas F. Mantell, a Kentucky Air National Guard pilot, unfortunately died when his P-51 Mustang fighter plane crashed near Franklin in Kentucky, United States, after being ordered to pursue an unidentified flying object. The event was one among the most publicised early UFO incidents. The object was not noted by either of the two planes which approached Japan Airlines Flight 1628 to confirm its presence. However, by the time they had arrived, the 1628 had also lost sight of the objects. Japan Airlines Flight 1628 finally arrived at Anchorage at 1820. Captain Tarachi cited in the official Federation Aviation Administration report that the object was an unidentified flying object. In the December of 1986, Tarachi gave an interview to two Kyodo News journalists. However, Japan Airlines soon grounded him for talking to the press and moved him to a desk job. He was eventually reinstated as a pilot after several years, and then he went on to eventually retire to North Kanto in Japan. On the 24th of December 1986, Kyodo News contacted the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA, Public Information Office in Anchorage, and Mr. Paul Stuck, and received full confirmation of the incident, followed by the United Press International, or the UPI, on the 29th of December 1986. The Federal Aviation Administration's Alaskan region consulted the FAA Division Chief of the Accidents and Investigations Branch, John Callahan, as they wanted to know what to tell the media about the unidentified flying objects. However, John Callahan was unaware of any such incident. He considered it was probably just an early flight of a stealth bomber that was in early development. He asked the Alaskan region to forward the relevant data to their technical centre in Atlantic City, New Jersey, where he and his superior played back the radar data and tied it in with the voice tapes by videotaping the concurrent playbacks. After a short break, we'll look at the further aftermath of the sightings and possible explanations as to what the crew may have witnessed.
This show is brought to you by courtesy of Neil Packer and the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre. Find them online at www.hauntedresearchcentre.com or at 9 to 11 Regent Street, Hinckley, LE10 1AW. Open Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for guided tours of the haunted rooms at just £3 per person. Booking is essential at all times and over 16s only, unless accompanied by an adult. The haunted rooms are extremely haunted, and paranormal activity could, and has, taken place at any time. Some areas and particular objects or items can be quite scary and unnerving. Why not pay them a visit to see for yourself? Membership is available for £25 to qualify for selective discounts. And why not download the app, available on both iOS and Android, for only $3.99 to keep you up to date with what's coming up at the centre.
Fright Nights was established in 1999 and was the first company in the world to offer overnight ghost hunt experiences to the general public, pioneering paranormal events since the last century. Now, over 23 years old, hundreds of ghost hunts join Fright Nights every month for the most thrilling ghost hunting experience worth remembering. If you have never been on a ghost hunt before, then why not join them on an event to see what it's all about? Fright Nights currently operate at hundreds of the UK's most haunted and exclusive venues with their teams of experienced paranormal investigators, mediums and psychics. You are guaranteed a quality night of ghost hunting unequalled by any other company. They have a VIP members club for regular returning guests, offering discounts and exclusive event invitations. And they can host private events for you and your friends, clubs or work colleagues. They have also expanded their new Friends of Fright Nights pages with many more new things to come. So why not book early with a small deposit so you don't miss out? The balance is due 28 days prior to the event. Contact them on 07852 998 628 or email at frightnightsevents@gmail.com. That's frightnightsevents@gmail.com. Or why not visit their website www.frightnights.co.uk, where you can see the many locations they investigate and learn a lot more about them and the opportunities they have available. You can also visit their many social media sites for up-to-date information on all the places they have been to and what's coming up in the future. They look forward to seeing you soon. Fright Nights Ghost Hunting Events. Remember, only the original will do.
Timothy Good, who is an author popular with UFO enthusiasts, claimed in his book that just a day later at the Federal Aviation Administration's headquarters, they briefed Vice Admiral Donald D. Engen, who watched the whole video of over half an hour and asked them not to talk to anybody until they were given the okay and to prepare an encompassing presentation of the data for a group of government officials for the following day. The meeting was attended by representatives of the FBI, CIA, and President Reagan's scientific study team, among others. Upon completion of the presentation, the author Timothy Good claimed that all who were present at the gathering were told that the incident was secret and that their meeting never took place. According to the FAA Division Chief John Callahan, the officials considered the data to represent the first instance of recorded radar data on an unidentified flying object, so consequently they took possession of all the presented data. John Callahan, however, managed to retain the original video, Captain Tarachi's report, and the Federal Aviation Administration's first report in the office, or in his office, I should say. Not only that, but the forgotten target printouts of the computer data were also rediscovered, from which all targets can be reproduced that were in the sky at that time. After a 3-month investigation, the FAA formally released their results at a press conference held on the 5th of March 1987. Here, Public Information Officer Paul Sturck, retracted the earlier Federal Aviation Administration suggestion that their controllers confirmed a UFO sighting and ascribed it to a split radar image which appeared with unfortunate timing. He clarified that, and I quote, "The FFA did not have enough material to confirm that something was there, and though they were accepting the descriptions by the crew, they were unable to support what they saw." The McGrath UFO incident was also revealed to be here amongst the ample set of documents supplied to the journalists. I'll go into more details regarding the McGrath UFO incident later on in the show. The Japan Airlines cargo flight 1628 UFO incident received special attention from the media as a supposed instance of the tracking of UFOs, both on the ground and by airborne radar, while being observed by experienced airline pilots, with subsequent confirmation by the FAA Division Chief. UFO researcher Philip J. Klass, a contributor to Aviation Week and Space Technology, investigated the incident and wrote in his 1997 book, The UFO Invasion, that, and I quote, "The FFA information reveals Tarachi to be a UFO repeater, with 2 other UFO sightings prior to November the 17th, and 2 more this past January, which normally raises a caution flag for any experienced UFO investigators." Again, I'll look into these other UFO sightings later in the show. The Japan airline pilot is convinced that UFOs are extraterrestrials, and when describing the lights, Captain Tarachi often used the term spaceship or mothership. Some skeptics view the explanation for this incident by claiming the UFO sightings were actually the presence of a very bright Jupiter and Mars in the positions reported by the captain, and that interpreting celestial bodies as UFOs is a fairly common thing. Some skeptics even claim that the radar return reported by the captain were not UFOs, but rather the mountain terrain just ahead of the aircraft. Skeptics have also claimed that the UFO sighting was the result of some village lights bouncing off ice crystals in the atmosphere. So no reports of weather balloons. Okay. So let's take a look at the McGrath UFO incident with Alaskan Airlines Flight 53. Now, to be honest, there aren't really many details covering this incident, but I'll give you what I have found. McGrath itself is an upper Kuskokwim Digenage. Is that Digenage?
Possibly.
I can't pronounce that one. Digenegh. Diner? Don't know. Anyway, sorry. It is a small village situated on the Kuskokwim River in Alaska, United States. The population of this small location was 301 as of the census in 2020. Despite its small population, the village is an important transportation and economic hub for the area. On the 29th of January 1987 at 1840, Alaska Airlines Flight 53 observed a fast-moving object on their onboard weather radar. While at 35,000 feet, some 60 miles west of McGrath, on a flight from Nome to Anchorage, the radar registered a strong target in their 12 o'clock position at a 25-mile range. While they could not distinguish any object or light visually, they noticed that the radar object was increasing its distance at a very high rate. With every sweep of their radar, about 1 second apart, the object added 5 miles to its distance, translating to a speed of roughly 18,000 miles per hour. The pilot, however, relayed a speed of a mile a second to the control tower, or a speed of 3,600 miles per hour, but confirmed that the target exceeded both the 50-mile and 100-mile ranges of their radar scope in a matter of seconds. The object was outside the radar range at the Anchorage ARTCC, or the Air Route Traffic Control Center, and unfortunately, additional radar data covering the specific time and location failed to substantiate the pilot's claims. So now let's take a look at the other UFO incident that I mentioned earlier. Now, this is known as the KC-135 observation. This incident is somewhat of an enigma, to be honest, in that I can hardly find any details for it at all, except that it happened. So, this is all I can find. A US Air Force KC-135 jet flying from Anchorage to Fairbanks once again observed the very large disc-shaped object on the 30th of January 1987. The pilot reported that the object was around 12 metres from the aircraft. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the object just disappeared out of sight. And that's all the information I was able to find. Sorry about that. Yeah. According to UFO skeptic Robert Schaefer, he said of the Japan Airlines Flight 1628 sighting, and I quote, "The bottom line is, Tarachi's own flight crew saw only lights, and other aircraft checking out the situation saw nothing unusual."
Thank you all for taking the time out to listen to this episode of Mark's Unexplained World. Whether you be a regular listener or a newbie, we hope Mark keeps you fascinated with some of the unexplained stories, situations, or events he keeps writing about. Next time, we are going to look at the disappearance of Andrew Gosden. Andrew Paul Gosden disappeared from central London on the 14th of September in the year 2007, when he was aged just 14 years old. On that day, Gosden left his home in Doncaster, South Yorkshire, withdrew 200 from his bank account and brought a one-way ticket to London from Doncaster station. He was last seen on CCTV leaving King's Cross station on his arrival in London. But despite numerous national appeals for any information on the subsequent years following his disappearance, Gosden's reason for travelling to London that day and his subsequent fate have never been established.
This show was written and researched by myself, Mark Hughes, and proofread and edited by Linda Hughes. The actors in this episode were Mark Hughes, Linda Hughes and Denise Pula. With special thanks to Neil Packer and the staff of the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre in Hinckley, and a big thanks to everyone for listening. Mark's Unexplained World, because there's more to the paranormal than meets the third eye. And remember guys, keep it real, because being real is better than being perfect. This show and all its contents are covered by basic copyright of Mark the Medium.